Okay.
Hey, hello everyone. I'm Jose Gamero Georgeson, co-chair, and my pronouns are he, him, él. And first of all, thank you all for coming. Welcome to all the commissioners, staff, and the members of the community who may have stopped by to our second bylaws committee meeting. Next slide, please. Here's our full agenda, has a lot of information. Some of it the commission has heard before, but we have to have a firm understanding of all of this. So we're going to go over some things again. As you can see, most of it is briefing regarding how to best go about doing the work of bylaws creation. And we're going to welcome back Senior Deputy City Attorney Maya Hyam to assist us in understanding. Um, if you all remember, Maya was there with us in the July retreat. Um, Next slide, please. And we'll get started with meeting introductions and reminders um, from Co-Chair Taylor.
Hello, my name is I'm Coach here, Issa Taylor. I use he, him pronouns. And so for some meeting reminders, we're gonna review notes about this meeting and our adopted working agreements and improvements to our process. Next slide, please. So for notes about this meeting, so the facilitators will be co-chair Jose Gamero Georgeson, and me. This meeting being recorded via Zoom and will be posted online for transparency. And please make sure, commissioners, that your Zoom name reflects your title. So please shorten it to COM or all if you're a commissioner or an alternate. And remember that commissioners must raise their hands via Zoom to speak, and the facilitator will call on you. And remember to state your name, title, and pronouns every time you speak. And now for public comment, individuals will be called on facilitators during the public comment agenda time, and all materials can be found on this meeting's event page on this link. And for tech help, remember to ask Wayne Grabowski on Zoom. And yeah, next slide. Also, Wayne, will you please introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. Wayne Grabowski. My pronouns are he or they. I work at Bureau Planning and Sustainability, and I'm honored to help support this Commission Bylaws Committee.
Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. Okay, so here's our working agreements. For working groups, is someone able to raise their hand on Zoom to volunteer to read out the bold parts?
Sure. Commissioner Maya Pakarana, she, they pronouns can read the bold parts. One, speak with clarity and focus. Two, WAIT, why am I talking? Three, assume good intentions but attend to impact. Four, be willing to make mistakes and be forgiving of those who do. Five, allow for and appreciate disagreement of opinions, ideas, methods respectfully. Six, build on other people's ideas. Seven, we value participation both in person and virtual.
Thank you, Commissioner Pagarana. I'd like to pass it to co-chair Jose for the next slide.
Thank you, Co-Chair Taylor. Again, I'm Co-Chair Jose Gamero Georgeson, pronouns he, him, él. We have several process improvements from previous meetings, and we're going to continue to keep having more of them. As an announcement, though, we wanted to let you know that Commissioner Dana Vissi had to step down from the Bylaws Committee. That takes us down to 8 committee members with one alternate. Doesn't really change your quorum number because simple majority is still 5 members. But please always make sure that when an email gets sent out asking for your quorum status, you respond so that we know what quorum will be for that meeting. And as a reminder, we now have agenda refreshers as part of our presentations. We will have that document amendments process. sort of like the one we had at the last full commission meeting on November 20th, and our interim voting process is still modified consensus. Are there any questions about these process improvements or any feedback regarding the process improvements and how these things have been going? Commissioner Tafone?
Yeah, I had a question on quorum. If we get quorum at the beginning and lose it in the middle, like so say like I'm not feeling great and I'm like have to go. I think I'll be fine this meeting, but if we lose quorum in the middle of the meeting, does that then end the meeting?
I think we need to double check. I don't think it ends the meeting, but we couldn't, unless we have quorum, we can't actually vote on anything and pass it. So we did have anything scheduled for a vote. We couldn't do it unless we had quorum. As it is, we have quorum now, but we would need all of us to agree if we wanted to vote on something to pass it.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, good job.
Anything else? And anytime you have a question, please, even if it's after a meeting, please just shoot the co-chairs an email. Always copy Elaine. I would say it makes it a lot easier. Or you just send Elaine an email. Next slide, please. Okay, now it's time for public comment. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment? I don't think so. Do I see anyone? Nope. I don't think we have anyone signed up for public comment. So we can move on to the next slide. Okay. So our first briefing is to ensure we have a good legal foundation to work on our bylaws. Next slide, please. And this is where Senior Deputy City Attorney Maya Hayam comes in. She has developed a one-pager for us that tells us what bylaws are, what laws and authority documents impact our commission. We were briefed on the documents listed in the one-pager before by a lot of different people. Elaine Visca Livingstone, when we did a one-on-one, as part of a retreat, Maya Haim also went over it. Julia Myron and Ocean Jasso from Civic Life covered part of it, and our form of government advisory bodies briefing. Sam Chase and Neil Tilstrom from the Office of Government Relations also included as part of our advocacy briefing. But the one pagers was really created for a quick reference, and that's why Maya's here tonight to review it with us and answer any questions more in depth, so we really understand what it means and to have that as a disposal. So if Elaine could please share your screen with the one pager, and then Maya, I'll just hand it over to you for you to take us through it, and I'll facilitate any questions and discussion.
Yeah, thank you. So again, Maya with the City Attorney's Office, she, her pronouns. This is going to be really quick. You've got the one pager in front of you. It's really just meant to bring together all of the information that you guys have been hearing from a lot of different sources. And I really like these to be conversations, so you're not just being talked at. So if you've got questions as we go through this, please feel free. I like to have conversations more than lectures. So that's always my preferred format. So diving right into this one pager at the top, what is the purpose of bylaws that you guys are here to discuss tonight? They're really to govern the internal affairs of the commission. So how are you guys, when you get together as a group, going to work through and set policy? How will you function as a group? So it's the internal affairs of the commission. It's to ensure clarity, transparency, and accountability as you are setting policy and making recommendations for the policymakers at the city. The one thing that I've seen, the biggest mistakes that sometimes commissions make, is they really try to pull in all areas of other laws to restate things that are in other documents. That is a mistake that you should avoid. And the reason for that is those other areas of laws, they can be amended. And we're not going to be necessarily tracking what's in your bylaws and what might be amended. And if those are other documents, for example, the public records law, that's a state statute. That's going to be amended. You don't want that in your bylaws because you don't need to be tracking that. And then if that is amended, and it does get amended quite frequently, every time the legislature meets, there are small tweaks to it. And if you've imported those laws into your bylaws, and you might be thinking, why would anybody do that? It happens frequently. And then now you've got discrepancies and conflicts between state statute and your bylaws. And you might be thinking, well, we just have to look at this one document. That's why people frequently do it, because they want to just look at their bylaws. They want it all in one place. But the problem with that is now you've got a conflict because the state statute has been amended and you're only looking at your bylaws. But if there's a conflict between state statute and your bylaws, the state statute will control. And you might only be looking at your bylaws and thinking you're golden, but that won't be the case. So really, again, if there's a state statute, leave that alone. You've got staff, the city attorney's office is going to be making sure that you're keeping abreast of any amendments. And we're going to be working with your staff liaisons and Elaine and Wing to make sure that you guys are complying with everything that you need to be doing. The bylaws are really for internal workings of the commission. So don't worry about pulling in parts of the charter, parts of state statute. That does not belong in the bylaws. So that's really my biggest mistake that I see a lot of other commissions making. So I want to make that clear. What should you include? So really the things that are within the commission's power to change. So for example, the minimum number of meetings per year, how frequently will you be meeting? General operating procedures, how will you be making decisions? So that's really critical, right? There's no state statute that's going to dictate how this commission makes decisions. That's exclusively for this commission to make. Its decision-making process that's entirely within your control. Officers and committees, if any. You don't need to decide whether you'll have any committees. Obviously, you have a bylaw committee. That usually is a committee that goes away. That's not a standing committee once the bylaws have been established. That's not typically a standing committee. It could be. That's entirely the commission's choice to make, but that's not typically a committee that you see in perpetuity. And then who can speak for the group and how to handle media inquiries. These are just 4 bullet points that I put on the one pager because those are things that are typically in the bylaws. It's by no means meant to be an exhaustive list. What's in the bylaws are entirely up to the commission to decide and for this committee to decide. But those are just some things that we typically see in bylaws. Any questions about the bylaws purpose? Again, I don't want to belabor it. It sounds like you guys have had a lot of these discussions. I just wanted to, I'm looking at this on my iPhone. So Maya, did you have your hand? Okay, it looks like there are people's hands up. Maya, I think you were first.
Maya Puckarana, she, they pronouns. Thanks for the one pager, very helpful. I was just wondering if you could clarify what is meant by who can speak for the group.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'm glad that Sam Chase came and talked to you guys. So we do a lot of coordination within the city with what we call OGR, which is the Office of Government Relations. So when we talk as the city to the governor's office or Multnomah County, we make sure that that's pretty coordinated. So we want to make sure that the city, we have 5,000 employees. Sometimes in the summer, we actually fluctuate up to 7,000 employees. We want to make sure that that's coordinated. And with our volunteer advisory bodies, we want to make sure that's coordinated as well. So you guys are all now speaking with the authority of the city. So if you get a media inquiry on behalf of the city, that might happen. So it's really great practice for this commission to have some idea about, okay, when that starts to happen, is there somebody who has authority to speak on behalf of this commission? That's the type of thing that is typically what we're talking about here. Because I think you guys have 20 members, is that correct?
Mhm.
So you probably want some to give some thought as to, do you want to have a coordinated message? Probably. You probably want that instead of having 20 different media statements going out. So you've got maybe conflicting messages, and that can be confusing. And you want to have a coordinated voice so that you have one voice and one message going out, speaking on behalf of the commission. That's what I mean by that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then because I have my glasses on and I can, which are the wrong prescription, I cannot see the type. So I know somebody has their hand up, and for me, it's the upper left-hand corner in the Brady Bunch, but I don't know if that is accurately tracked for everybody else.
Hi, Commissioner Luna
Is
Gonzalez.
it Luna? Luna.
Yes, she,
Yes.
her. I'm wondering about the piece of clarifying officers and committees, and specifically, like, if we were to want to make a committee later on because the need arises, would we have to amend the bylaws first, or could we include a power within the bylaws that says, like, if a committee arises, this is how we create a new committee?
Well, I would recommend that you create that authority in the bylaws so that you can do it later. It's a good question. Did that answer your question fully? Okay. It was a little short answer. I wanted to make sure that it fully answered. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, so going back to the one pager, authority of laws and other documents, I just wanted to, this is sort of just talking a little bit about, I wanted to clarify because one of the bullet points up there was like, hey, there's a whole bunch of laws that the commission should be aware of. And I just wanted to go through those a little bit so I wasn't leaving everybody hanging. So there's state laws, right? We've talked about this when I came and did the briefing. There's public meetings law you need to adhere to. There are public records law. There are ethics laws. And I should have said at the top of this, none of this is meant to be overwhelming. You have a lot of help and assistance from my office and from Elaine and staff. So this isn't meant to be overwhelming. Like, we've got you covered and a lot of assistance here. I just want you to not worry about having to import all of those laws into your bylaws. There's no need to do that. You just need to be aware of those. So those are the state laws that are most relevant to the work you're going to be doing as a commission. On the local level, there's the city charter, which is essentially Portland's constitution. And I did want to again point out, because I'm very proud of this, and I hope you guys are proud of this as well, that for the first time under our new change of government, the mayor and city administrator have the following responsibility, and I'll quote this: advance the city's efforts to mitigate the human-made climate crisis and prioritize environmental justice initiatives. And then I've cited those sections in the charter. So if you ever want to go and take a look at those or write them down somewhere and have them framed, I think it's really important. It's not usual to have that type of language in a city charter. So Portland is leading the way nationally for that. So really amazing to have that in the city's constitution, which is fabulous. Then we also have the creation of this commission in our city code. And hold on, I need to get my one pager back up in front of me. Okay, there it is. So that's chapter 3.136. So that's where all of the city code and the creation of this commission is. It has a little more about what this commission's purpose is. If you want to go look that up, that's where the code is. That's where this commission is in the city code. And then we have some relevant city administrative rules. I talked a little bit about coordination of government relations. That's the administrative rule that talks about government relations. And that's an important one because, again, it's really important that the city is always speaking with one voice, or at least that we're coordinated. And all of the bureaus, and my office has to do it too. We always are running all of that through government relations so that we want to make sure we've got one voice when we're working with entities outside of the city. So any questions before I move on to the different city roles about all of those, that sort of tapestry of the different laws that are operating. Again, none of this should be in your bylaws. I just wanted to, there's all of these things swirling around that impact the commission but don't belong in the bylaws. Okay. Maya. Come here. I'm pretty informal, so if any, I don't mean to offend anybody by using first names. And it's also just, again, my vision's really bad.
I am not offended. Maya Pukarana, Commissioner Maya Pukarana, she, they pronouns. I was just had a question about the speaking with a coordinated voice. I'm wondering if like an individual on the commission has the ability to speak publicly about the commission and what, what certain issues that might be of relevance. Can an individual speak in a personal capacity about those things publicly? Or yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, and I think that's a question for the commission to answer, frankly.
Okay.
So certainly you have a First Amendment right to do that. So, I mean, that's not going to be stripped from you. Yeah, right. But I think that's a really good question for the commission to think about. Like, how do you want to handle that? You're certainly going to get media inquiries, and how do you want those to be handled? Because the media will reach out to, if history repeats itself, that's typically what happens is media will reach out to all of the individual commission members individually. And so that's something for you guys to be thinking about. How do you want those media inquiries to be handled? Do you want that to be handled by designated individuals who will be, media inquiries will be funneled to particular individuals? Or do you want anybody to be ad hoc, off the cuff, answering those on behalf of the commission? The city has its own ideas about what are best practices, and what's worked historically has been more successful than other best practice. I mean, that's why we have best practices. But ultimately, I think that's a good question for you guys to discuss tonight.
If I could quickly respond, just to clarify, this Maya Pagrana, she, they pronouns, this idea or this topic pertains specifically to media inquiries, not an individual person speaking generally about the commission of their own free will.
Yeah, give me a fact example. Like if somebody asked, give me an example of what you're talking about outside of media.
I'm talking about like social media as an example. These days it's quite common for individuals to get their news, get information about the city on social media. And so I'm just curious. I feel like it's very commonly used, maybe among, for myself at least. So I'm just wondering, what is the relationship or best practice around social media?
Yeah, that's another great question. So the city has social media accounts, and we have a lot of best practices and policies around our social media accounts, because once we have created a social media account, then you've created a public forum. And those, you do want to understand what the city's policies are, because there are some criteria, for example, whether or not you can start to delete comments, because and you guys need to know this, if the commission decides to have a social media account, you are acting as a quasi-government actor. You're going to be limited in whether or not you can delete comments, and you're going to get comments that are not relevant to the topic, that are rude, that are profane, and you're going to want to delete some of those, and you're going to be limited in your ability to do that. So that's a really interesting topic that we could take an entire evening to discuss. So that's something to approach with a lot of strategy and thoughtfulness, because as a government, you are constrained in ways that you aren't as an individual.
Thank you. That's great insight.
Okay, any other questions before a quick review of city roles? And then you guys can get to the actual interesting part of your meeting. Okay, so very quickly, city rules. Remember that the council is there to make the laws, policies, and the budget. And those, we've gone through this whole big switch. We're just at the end of our first year of the new form of government. So we're doing things very differently than we have historically. So the council is there to make code and that's policies and the budget. So that's a really big one. They are responsible for deciding who gets the money. And then the city mayor and the city administrator, and we just appointed a new city administrator today. They are responsible for executing the laws and the policies that the city council makes. And they adopt administrative rules. And administrative rules are similar to the code, although they're sort of the details. How are things going to, so they kind of fill in the gaps of the code. And then the Climate and Sustainability Commission, that's you guys, are going to create Portland's first climate action plan. Very, very excited about that. And then what's the role of an advisory body, which is what you guys are? And it's really to provide advice to the policymakers, and that is really the council and then also the mayor and the city administrator and how to execute those policies. And remember, in our charter, the mayor and the city administrator are responsible for advancing our climate policy. So you guys are occupying a really critical and important role that an advisory body has not had historically, because that role is enshrined in our charter. The city or the mayor and the city administrator have that responsibility that hasn't been there before. So really critical role that you guys are filling this commission. And then that last bullet, the advisory bodies enhancement project, Julia Meyer, I know, has come and talked to you guys about, but the city launched that recently to try to help advisory bodies really understand their role. And that project is currently working on best practices for the advisory bodies, including bylaws, and they're going to have helpful resources. I know you've probably already gotten a little bit of that flavor, and I think there's going to be some additional stuff coming in the future to help with this work. So that's the one pager at a high clip, fast pace. So any additional questions before I bow out and you guys can get to your actual work? Okay. Well, I'm just so excited, Elaine and Vivian and I, every time we meet, I'm just like, I'm so excited for the work that you guys are doing. Thank you so much for volunteering your time. Really honored to be able to support you guys. And I'm going to be with you for the next several years. So feel free to reach out to Elaine if you have questions about legal issues, ethics, or anything at all. I'm happy to respond through Elaine and get you what you need.
Thank
All
you
right.
so much, Maya, for your time tonight.
My pleasure. I hope everyone has an excellent holiday season and stays dry.
You too.
Bye.
Bye. And like Maya said, any questions, please send them over to Elaine, and we'll get them over to Maya so that we can get them answered and out to everyone. And Maya will also do the final reviews of any bylaws we create or amend as well. So, okay, next slide, please. Our next briefing comes from us as the commissioners for best practices for bylaws. Next slide. And I personally have a lot of experience with bylaws. I have sat on rules or bylaws committees on a lot of different levels. I sit on the rules committee for the Democratic Party of Oregon, as well as the local Monoma Democratic Party. I also sit on the Policy Legislative Committee, which is a statewide policy for all school boards, for the Oregon School Board Association, as well as my local policy committee, as well as I even sat on the Rules Committee for the National Convention a couple years ago. So I've done a lot of different things that have to do with bylaws. It's tedious work, but I think it's very important. For me, good set of bylaws make groups accessible to everyone. It's the groups that don't have clear rules or clear customs that are easily found and looked up that are meant to keep people out. It's only people that know what to do and know the customs that can access them. So for me, it's very important to make sure groups are easily accessible to everyone. Next slide, please. And I know there's going to be a lot of other people in this community that have a lot of experience with developing, amending, and doing all kinds of things with bylaws. Here's some of the best practices. Some of them we already covered. Some of the main ones are like simple and easy to understand, but not vague. Commissioner Maya Pugara brought up some of the questions that we had at the last committee I sat on, the Government Transition Advisory Committee. So we had a policy that any media inquiry went to staff, and the staff then designated someone to talk to the media, which wasn't always the chair because sometimes they came like they had to be a Spanish speaker. So there are only two of us. So it's easy to just say this one person, but so many things arise that you don't know who it could be. So we thought staff. And then we also thought that everyone could talk about their own experience, but they couldn't just talk about on behalf of the committee. So we also made it a policy that if anyone was talking to any work relating to the committee, we had to say that we were talking as our own person and not on behalf of the committee. So, and it depends, we might not decide the same things, but that is just one way we decided to do it in the past. But anyone should be able to read our bylaws, including all of us, and understand exactly how we function and how to best participate. It still needs, like I said, to allow for to face unforeseen things. So flexibility and adaptability is really important. And as always, it just needs to stand up to legal review. We can't put anything in there that requires us to do something that the law says we have to do something else. Does anyone else have anything that they want to share from their experience or any best practices they can think of? Um, and just to note, I was told that the adequate number of seconds to wait for people to respond is 7, which is awkwardly long. So whenever I ask a question, you will get a 7-second pause afterwards. So if anyone, so just know you'll have 7 seconds to raise your hand. So, but if we don't see any additional ones, next slide, please. Next is our last briefing before we take a break on the current guidance from the advisory body's advancement project. Next slide. Yeah. And Elaine will take us through the relevant sections of their final report from Julia Meyer, and will provide a general update on the project. So next slide, and take it away, Elaine. And
Thank you, Co-Chair Jose. And thank you, Bylaws Committee, for having me give this update. Julia Meyer has submitted her final report. That is linked on this meeting materials, this event for this meeting. And Julia and staff presented their final work to City Council just this past Monday at the Governance Committee. A lot of questions to the report. And so they will go back to Governance Committee again, and we'll be going in front of full council likely in the first quarter of the new year. And then from there, administrative rules will be made from whatever code council adopts, and the administrative rules will come out of the city administrative office, which will be the chief engagement officer. For us, we will overview the relevant sections for this bylaws committee, which are 2 documents, which we're going to also overview later in this meeting. One is the creation form, and one is bylaws. The creation form you cannot change as a commission, and the bylaws is what the commission does amend. So give me one moment to switch over my share screen. Is everyone seeing creation forms? Yes. Okay. So this is on page 16 of the final report of the advisory body's enhancement project, which again is linked in this meeting event. So the creation form is what is created, how this body is created, and the elements that create this body. So again, as the commission, you do not change this. Most of this information is developed in our code when this commission was codified. So you'll see that later on. It has these elements, this exact list: the name, the type of body that we are, our purpose, who you advise, number of seats, alternates, term length, meeting attendance requirements, and any if there's any limitations on reappointment. The other part of this final, like there's more, I guess there's stipend, there's this whole list is in the creation form. Then the other part of the final report that affects us is bylaws. And you'll see the recommendations that Maya Hayam gave us as what are included in bylaws matches really clearly up to what is in the recommendations in this report. So bylaws include the frequency of meetings, general operating procedures, including how you all make decisions, officers and subcommittees, the facilitator role, and who can speak for the group, and how to handle media and inquiries. And talks about some of the authority that advisory bodies generally have, including what your decision-making process is, electing your own leadership and what those leadership positions look like, and creating sub-bodies. So in our case, committees of the body. Are there any questions about this section of the final report, the steps moving forward? I really do want to convey that these things may change. And so we may have to be adaptable. From the conversations at council, I'm not foreseeing a whole lot changing about the creation form or the bylaws themselves, but we can't predict that. So.
No questions, no discussion. Okay. So if there's nothing, we can go. We're a little ahead of schedule. Do we want to take just a break till 6:50 instead of 7? That'd be a very long break. Yes? Is that okay? Okay. 10-minute break. We'll be back at 6:50. The slide will say 7. Pretend it says 6:50. We're ahead 10 minutes ahead. I will see you all then. Get something to drink. Welcome back, everyone. 6:50.
Hello. Oh, 1 second. Hello. Welcome back from the break, everyone. For the record, I'm co-chair Issa Taylor, and I use he/him pronouns. So right now we're gonna go straight into our next briefing, also from our commission. So, just for a quick overview, for the creation form, we can't actually change the document, and for the draft bylaws form, then we'll work on this we're gonna work on this the coming months, and we'll have questions for staff after some discussion questions, right after we look through the forms. And for the next, I'd like to hand it over to Elaine.
Thank you, Co-Chair Taylor. For the record, I'm Elaine Visca Livingstone. I use she, they pronouns, and I am the Sustainability and Climate Commission Coordinator. Um, just to repeat some things that have already been repeated in this meeting, that we are governed by all the listed authority or law documents on the bylaws one pager. And today we're going to look at the creation form and the bylaws draft. Then staff has some questions for the committee that Co-Chair Taylor will guide us through. And let me just switch over my screen share. One moment. All right, is everyone seeing the creation form? Okay. So again, the creation form cannot be changed by the commission. It includes our name, our classification, which is an ongoing advisory body, and most of the items in our creation form refer straight back to our Portland City Code, Chapter 3.136, which created this body. So that makes sense that there's alignment there. And then the other thing to note is that we do have alternates. Not all bodies have alternates. We do, that are appointed to ensure continuity of work in case there is commissioner attrition. And the other item that is outside of our city code is the meeting attendance is the citywide attendance policy, which is volunteers must attend at least 25% of meetings within 12 months. Are there any questions about the creation form before I move on? I see a hand, Commissioner Gonzalez.
Hi, Commissioner Luna Gonzalez, she, her. I'm wondering, can we as a commission set a higher standard than that? Or is it like for, I'm wondering about for meeting attendance specifically.
Yes, you can set a higher standard. So that is a good question overall. So thank you for raising that, Commissioner Gonzalez. In all of our authority and law documents, there's guidance, but the commission in bylaws can make things more conservative or outline specific processes. For example, in city code, there are powers and duties for this body. This commission could decide to be more specific in bylaws about those powers and duties. Any other questions about the creation form? Okay, next are our bylaws, which again largely come from a template that is already created within the city. So the first section of our bylaws is this is a created body, when it was created, and what is the associated city code. For different bodies, it may not be city code. For us, it's city code. The frequency of meetings. So within our city code, we are required to meet at least 6 times. I'd have to check the actual language of our city code if someone wants to open that city code and check me on that. But in bylaws, I propose that the commission aims to meet monthly. And also a note about city staff eliminating barriers for commissioners, that we try to schedule for maximum participation. We have regular check-ins and feedback for that. And we can do reimbursements for childcare, and help with technology. The third section is general operating procedures. So there's a note about quorum. You'll see in state laws, when they talk about quorum, they're always defaulting to a simple majority, which is 50% plus one. That's what we also have reflected in bylaws here. Voting, you have to have quorum to voting. Proxy and absentee voting is not allowed. And then we have our decision-making process. Thus far, this commission has been using a modified consensus decision-making process. And this is to foster collaborative decision-making, honor different viewpoints, but also be considerate of time. And so this next section outlines that process, of which we've already been using in commission meetings. So this should be pretty familiar to you. That agenda item is called. There's a notification when a voting is required. There is background provided or briefing provided on whatever is being voted on. There's discussions and questions about whatever is being voted on. And then when that comes to a natural conclusion, or when it's called from the facilitator, commissioners can call a proposal to vote, and they have to outline a proposal, and then the facilitator will call a vote. And there's 3 options how the commissioners can vote. That's affirmative, stand aside, and no. With stand aside and no, they have the opportunity to air their concerns. And stand aside means that they're willing to go along with the proposal, but they may have substantial concerns. And then again, passage is by simple majority. Also, under our general operating procedures, we have the use of technology. So thus far, we've been using Zoom to facilitate some of our requirements for public meetings, and records laws. So commissioners are panelists on Zoom that have access to the chat. And that's how we've been doing amendments, is using the chat and providing information via the chat. And all of the chat will be copy and pasted to our meeting minutes so that it is part of the public record. And we're using the Zoom raise your hand feature for voting and decision making. And we're also using Zoom for meeting procedure for raising the hand and having a queue, and the facilitators calling on the commissioners. I'm going to pause there because I've gone through some big sections. Are there any clarifying questions up until now in bylaws? I'm counting now. The 7 seconds. Okay, the next section is the removal of members and resignations. So for unexcused absences, staff keep attendance and inform the CSO, the Chief Sustainability Officer, commission leadership of absences, who then in turn inform the commissioner in writing that they have been removed due to unexcused absences. The next process for removal is for failure to disclose a conflict of interest. So again, staff informs the CSO and commission leadership if any failures of conflicts of interest have been violated. This may be really important for this body, as we do have members who, outside of this commission, receive funding from PSEF, for example. And that information has been disclosed. So I just do want to highlight that conflicts of interest do exist and have been disclosed. So then if a commissioner receives 3 or more written warnings of violations, the CSO and commission leadership then can in turn inform them in writing that they've been removed as a member. And then lastly, for other removal reasons, this could be for code of conduct reasons, this could be for HR reasons. Is it the same process that if there are violations, it's discussed with the CSO and commission leadership, and the commissioner in question would be informed of writing of the violations and removal. I see a hand, Commissioner Jose. Oh, you're still muted.
Sorry about that. Okay, it's for the conflict of interest. We have a clear like conflict of interest after 3 written warnings, you may be removed. But for the other ones, it's very vague as to it doesn't even say exactly what's going to kick off a warning versus a straight removal. So I wonder if we might put a note just to put that like a simple process in some of these, like for attendance, like if you are nearing X percentage, we'll give you a warning so that you know you can't miss any more or something like that.
I think that would be great addition. Yeah, I do want to highlight that you will all be amending these, getting into this document. We'll have full meetings to really get out the process, but we will note any initial feedback or reactions. And also tonight, you all have to decide on what sections to focus on first, so that we can have these bylaws completed by March. So that's another thing to be thinking about as we're going through these. Okay, and then, oh, I guess, did I read the resignation process? So commissioners are expected to make a good faith effort to complete their term. If that's not possible, we expect commissioners to notify us in writing, as preferred, and that they're encouraged to complete a resignation form, which is an internal city form that we have, which is similar to, it kind of relieves you of the public retention form that you all filled out at the retreat. The next section is leadership. This section comes directly out of the leadership proposal that you all are operating under now. So this can completely change. This is here as this was the initial proposal. So it is your turn to define this. But you should be familiar with this. Currently, you have 2 co-chairs. They represent the full commission in official capacity. They attend executive sessions with the CSO and commission coordinator. They provide strategic support. They help set priorities, and they assist in agenda setting, and they facilitate commission meetings and oversee voting processes. For duration, we have them serve for 6 months, and they may serve consecutive terms. And for nominations, commissioners can nominate themselves or another commissioner, and nominees can choose to accept or decline their nominations. And then lastly, voting, just as these current co-chairs were voted in, will be using ranked choice voting, with the top 2 nominees receiving the highest ranking serving as co-chairs. So again, this is what we're currently operating under, and you all can decide the leadership model that you would like to go forward with. Committees. So this is the section of creating those processes for setting committees. So the commission may divide its members into committees authorized to act on behalf of the full commission. And it may have an assigned purpose and elect its own leadership. These committee meetings are subject to all public meeting laws and must abide by the operating procedures in this document. I also do want to highlight that when it comes to agenda setting, which is related to creating committees, because to create a committee has to be on agenda, all agenda setting authority relies or is the CSOs with input from your co-chairs. So that's how it currently operates. But the agenda setting authority cannot change as that is in Portland City Code. So the CSO will always have agenda setting authority. Communication. So this gets at some of those media questions. I'm sensing that we may need to put some social media ideas in this section. But of course, we value transparency. And the best practices, well, what's required for media and interest is that commissioners notify the commission coordinator of any verbal communications. The commissioners are required to copy the CSO, the commission coordinator, and co-chairs on all written communication with interest groups. And these communications will be included in public record as detailed in this and copied to the full commission as appropriate. So I know outside of media and interest groups, there's been other questions. So I again foresee this a section that you all will create some more processes around because there are communications outside of interest groups and media. And then amendment of bylaws. You may vote to recommend amendments or repeal of these bylaws. I, as staff, can recommend changes to the CSO, and the CSO must sign off on original bylaws and any amendments. And bylaws are subject to city attorney review and approval. This draft was reviewed by Maya and approved by Maya, as it also was reviewed by our CSO and approved by the CSO. So you can see here we've started a documentation of these bylaws were created, they were approved, and we're expecting amendments and then full adoption. So let me switch my share screen yet again. And I'm going to pass it off to co-chair Taylor to facilitate our discussion and questions. And ultimately, we need to decide on what sections of the bylaws to focus on first to set our upcoming bylaws meetings.
Thank you, Elaine. For the record, co-chair Issa Taylor. I use him, he, and pronouns. And so, firstly, for some discussion questions, do you guys have any questions or points of clarification on what Elaine was just talking about? Commissioner Maya Pagarana.
Commissioner Maya Pagarana, she, they. I missed the first bylaws meeting, so I just want to clarify that the goal of the committee is to, by March, have a final draft of bylaws. Is that right? Okay, great. That was truly my one question for now.
Thank you. Commissioner Dan Trifone.
Yeah, Christian Antrophone, he, him. Can we answer any of the questions, or are we just doing question by question?
Question by question.
Okay, I'll wait. I was like sections missing, but I
Oh,
don't have
okay.
any other points of clarity though.
All right. Okay. Well, for the next question, are there any ideas or feedback you guys may have? All right. Or do you guys believe there's any sections missing? I believe you have something to say about that, Commissioner Trifone.
Yeah, Commissioner Dan, Trifone, he, him. Um, I was wondering, because we're doing this climate action plan, and it seems like there could be a fair amount of work, outside of the commission itself, potentially. Like a plan it's a big undertaking. And I'm wondering if we need something in the bylaws about it or or if we should, or if we put it in a different a section that already exists, but um, if we need it, I guess is really the question. Work outside of commission time.
All right. Yeah, we'll definitely look into that. Elaine.
Thank you, Co-Chair Taylor, Elaine Visca Livingstone, she, they pronouns, the commission coordinator. I have a follow-up to that, Commissioner Dan. Are you talking about like the work in amending documents and that type of work outside of the meetings, or are you talking about other type of work? Because I do want to say that like work sessions are still public meetings. So like if you're talking about like a writing retreat for the climate action plan, that's still a public meeting and we still have to adhere to public meeting laws and all of that.
Yeah, I think I was thinking about maybe both of those things, like, um, and just maybe highlighting them somehow. Um, and yeah, absolutely following all public records law, but it just seemed like something that hadn't been kind of drawn out in the current bylaws.
Commissioner Jose.
Yes, and I think also I know from the past we did a lot of research on other cities when we were talking about the transition of government, and that research was done not in a work session, not during a meeting, but then we presented all our findings during our meeting, and we submitted our findings to be included in the meeting materials, so that all of that would be part of public meeting laws. So that's we might want to have a section that just states that any work done for commission purposes will be presented at a commission meeting and all materials included as part of the meeting materials to prevent any of that.
Elaine.
Yeah, that addressed part of my question, but also goes to, I think part of what we're talking about does fall under the powers and duties that are outlined in our Portland City Code. So part of what I think about this questions of sections that are missing is what do we need to have in bylaws to enact our powers and duties? And part of that is like the work sessions and all of that.
Um, and so lastly, for discussion questions, what sections should we work on first? Commissioner Luna.
Hi, Commissioner Luna Gonzalez, she, her. I think it makes sense for me at least to start with membership on the commission and attendance and just thinking about like how do we even get to this space? And then we can think about what do we do when we're here and how do we actually ensure that we're meeting our purpose.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Jose.
Yeah, and membership's near the top, and this seems like a very duh answer, but it's easy. It's just easy to go down in order. Some sections will be like you go down, you look at a section, it'll be like, this section is fine, and there's no conversation. And some sections, like communication or something about around media, will take us a lot longer. We'll have to process a lot, and it might break down into more than one section. But I think that's just the easiest way. We can just check things off as we go down. I found that when you're working on the whole set of bylaws, that usually is the best way to do it. Um,
Commissioner Dan.
Yeah, Digitron, he, him. Yeah, I second that, Jose. I think that sounds great, and keep the process simple.
Are there any other questions anyone has? Commissioner Jose.
yeah, and I'll just make a comment that a lot more questions will arise as we work through it, right? Because we will start talking about a section and that will prompt questions. And then someone will bring up a point and we'll be like, oh, I didn't even think of that. So that will set up more questions. So when you read through it, just jot down anything that's important. Because sometimes like social media is mentioned and sometimes people don't think about that. So we want to make sure we hit some of those things that are for sure already coming up, but try to make it so that we could still deal with things as they come up later. We don't want to be too strict, but we also don't want to be too vague. Uh, it would leave us open to a lot of things if we left it too vague. Um, and I would like processes for more things, like I mentioned with the removal. I'd want people to be warned, oh, you haven't attended enough meetings instead of just, oh, you're kicked out, like certain things like that we'd want to have guardrails in front of. Um, Also, what happens if like a co-chair wants to resign early for some reason? Um, what do we do? Do we just like the new co-chair now and they just finish out that co-chair's term, or do they start a whole 6 months and then we're staggered? And either way is okay. And we might want to talk about that, right? We might want to stagger co-chairs. So right now, Isa and I started at the same time because it's the beginning. But do we want to say from now on, one co-chair will be elected every 3 months so that it's not both co-chairs turning over at the same time, because that makes it harder, right? Having one person has done it before makes it easier. So there are different things we can talk about how we want the process to be made. But we don't have to come up with every single one of those little things right now. It's just start thinking about when we talk about each section, we'll probably all those things will come up.
Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for your input. And now I'd like to pass it to co-chair Gamero Georgeson for our next agenda item.
Thank you. And that was really fast. We got through that discussion really fast. So before I go into the timeline, is there anything else anyone wants to say about the bylaws, or anything you want to say now so it doesn't get forgotten, since we do have a few extra minutes? Okay. Okay, so then the timeline, the next slide. We need to be timely with finishing these bylaws. Our conversations are going very well and they don't take very long. So hopefully that's a good precursor to what's to come. So we can take them to the commission and have them adopted by March, so we could do our work. But also, because we are limited in our staffing, it's really hard for us to create another committee when we have one going on. And hopefully that will be fixed in the future. But if any of you have been watching the council and the budget, you know that budget is tight. So we want to keep knowledge of that whenever possible. So the quicker we finish this work, the quicker we can start another committee if we wanted to, so we can do other work. And have been commissioners that have talked to us about doing other areas. So that's a good motivator to keep working on this. So feel free to look at the bylaws and make little notes and send them to us. And then that'd be a good place for us to kick off discussions in the future. Because sometimes you'll think of something and then you'll think you for sure I'll remember next meeting, and then you won't. So just take a note. But we'll have a lot of different dates and processes to go along the way to keep getting us forward to meet this deadline, make sure we're done by March. Next slide, please, to go over that a little bit. As we discussed, we'll work on section by section, starting at the beginning, since we actually going in order and going with membership first actually works out, because that's pretty much the top thing in there. So we'll do that. And as we go through the amendment process, staff will be updated. So they'll review whatever we do. So everything will just go off to Maya and make sure it's all legal. And then Co-Chair Isa and I will provide updates to the full commission at every meeting. But you'll see here on the slide how pretty much we're going to go through this. If we could get through it faster, great. Some sections are going to take a really long time, and some sections will be a 3-minute conversation. So we'll play it by ear by how fast we actually get through this. Is there any questions or feedbacks on this? Oh, Elaine first.
Thank you, Co-Chair Jose. For the record, Elaine Visca Livingstone, she, they pronouns, Commission Coordinator. I just want to repeat what I'm hearing so I know that what my role is that we are going to go in order section by section. So January 3 sections, February 3 sections, March and 2 sections is the goal. But we're going to go in order, and I will send out the bylaws draft to you all before the meeting. You're adding any comments or track changes in those documents, sending them back to me by this first date under each month. And then you all are meeting, doing live amendments like we did in the last full commission meeting, and then sending that to staff for review. And we're just going to go through an iterative process of that through time.
Yes, and I will add though, and it might make things a little more difficult when we plan agenda, but since some sections might be really fast, I haven't really looked at the order to see if the first 3 sections might be 3 sections that we'll get through in 2 minutes. So we might just have to talk through that to kind of see where we think we'll have to spend more time. And it might be like 5 sections, 1 meeting, and 1 section the next meeting that, so that the breakdown might change depending on our conversations. But I think we could get through it faster even than this timeline if all things go well.
Great. So my prompting isn't just the first 3 sections. It's please work on all the bylaws. We'll get through as much as we can in a meeting, and we'll just keep that prompting as people have more and more thoughts.
Yes, and if anything I can do to help make you not have to do everything all at once.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out how to track all of these changes and make sure that Wing and I have an all up document for each of you each meeting that is all of your edits and comments through time. So that's what I want to make sure we're able to do for you all so that we're prepared to look at your amendments in meetings. Wing, do you have any thoughts about this process as we're talking about it?
William Grabowski, he, they, meeting support for the record. Thank you for asking. If I may be allowed to consider that question outside of this meeting time, and come back to the group, I would appreciate that.
Thank you, Wayne. And I will say also to make this process easier for all of us and staff particularly, I would say open up the bylaws document, which linked is in our event materials for this meeting, and start writing down ideas and things you might want to talk about for possible inclusion so that we could have all those things already included in a possible document ahead of time. So it's not adding and amending a million things all at once while the meeting's happening. As much as we can have that ahead of time, the better. And I'll do that as well. And some sections you might have nothing on, and you might have 50 ideas for one section. That's okay because we all are experts on different things. So we'll all come in, bring a different viewpoint to this. And that I kind of appreciate that about this group, that everyone's brings a whole different skill set to the table. But please, the more we can get ahead of time, I think the easier this process and the faster this process will be. Any questions about that at all? Any other comments from Elaine or anyone else? No, no, no. Okay. So with that, um, next slide, please. Our last agenda item is our meeting conclusion and our feedback forms. Um, People do not fill out the feedback forms after the bylaws meeting, what I found out. They're much more likely to do it after the big meeting. So please fill out your feedback form. It takes very little time. If you have no feedback, fill that out and say, I have nothing extra to say. We always look at the feedback form and read the little things for things that people want to talk in the future. We do discuss it and we make a lot of the decision based on what we get from these forms. So they are valuable. They're not just another survey that no one reads. Next slide, please. And Elaine will drop the meeting feedback link. She already did in the chat. She'll also send it out in the next weekly high five. But I have found that if you just do it right now, you'll remember, and if you wait till the weekly high five, you'll forget. So make sure you get that done, and then just so you know, the next committee meeting is Wednesday, January 14th from 6 to 8 p.m. online. The staff will send the bylaws draft via email for all of us to amend before the meeting. It's also already there, but please keep an eye on your email because the one that's posted there is what's correct as of right now. But as Elaine said, and I watched the governance committee meeting because I do, and they had a million questions. So we don't know how that will affect our bylaws. It might not at all, but if it does, I'm sure Lane will send us a new set of bylaws before that date if anything changes or happens. So please keep an eye on your email. The commissioner amendments will be due by Monday, January 5th, and the meeting materials will be posted by Monday, January 12th, before our January 14th meeting. And that's it. Thank you all for coming. And I will see you all next time, and I will give you half hour of your life back. See you all
Thank
next time.
you. See you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.